Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm privileged to welcome a very senior and accomplished professional from Boston, USA, Dr. Carol Kauffman. Carol, welcome.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Kauffman is an author of a book titled Real-Time Leadership. She's a member of the Harvard faculty. She's a CEO coach, a keynote speaker, and a part of the Thinkers 50 Top 8. She's a senior leadership advisor with Egon Zehnder, and she loves prehistoric art, safaris, anthropology, and traveling the world. So, Carol, before we talk about your book and leadership, tell me a little bit about your own journey.
Well, I started out actually, first I worked with violent horses, was my first, those that were abused. Then I was a singer. Then I really found out that why I loved to sing was really the emotional impact it had for people. And that's when I decided to leave singing and become a psychologist.
Wow.
Which was from my first coaching session. And I specialized in trauma for many years. And that was very powerful work. And my trauma survivors got better and then became peak performance clients. And then I went from that into coaching and then coaching leaders. And along the way, I started the Institute of Coaching. We have about 1,000 members. And I have to say, of all the things I do, I really love coaching leaders the best by far.
Amazing. And that is what probably led you to write your book, Real-Time Leadership, as well. So let's talk about your book. Tell me about the inspiration to write Real-Time Leadership and what was your hypothesis when you wrote it?
Okay. What really evolved for me and my co-author, David Noble. So David is a businessman. He was a CEO of an internet bank way back when. And he angles in on the strategy side because the book is part business book. It could be an MBA book, actually. And I brought to it then my background in behavioral psychology and more sort of intangible identity issues that we put together. And the backbone of the book is really about how can you as a person and a leader find the wherewithal to create a space between a stimulus that comes at you and the response you give. And as a leader and as a person, if you can do that, but that you can also then know what to do in that space, it will you be a better leader, a person, help you lead your team better, and then create a ripple effect where people can be genuinely aware and responsive to each other and having high performance.
Very interesting. And what does real-time leadership mean to you? And how does it differ from any other form of leadership?
Well, in a way, it probably overlaps a lot with servant leadership, transformative leadership, all of those, except what our book does is it's really like an operating manual. Because people say, oh, here's a way you could treat other people. Well, we have 4 categories and we literally go through like a checklist, like an emergency checklist of a pilot in each of these areas. I think that's one thing it does. And that's because David and I are, pretty much, great coaches. And so we use that. But so what we do is we really believe that this kind of agile leadership where you can change instantly, it's like you can use each part of the book for a split-second question, will help you under fire and under rapidly changing conditions. So it's really how can you constantly pivot?
Okay. And you say that this book is for everyone, not just those in managerial positions.
Yes.
Can you elaborate a little more about this? Because obviously your understanding of leadership goes beyond management.
Well, it's very interesting because David and I primarily work with CEOs and founders, and people like yourself. And, so we wrote the whole book with that in mind, either that, people who are, very high-end leaders or people who will become them. It's only after we gave the book to HBR and it was out of our hands that I realized we had also written a parenting book. That we talk about. It works at the top of the house and it works in your own house in terms of literally every aspect of the book. And we have this acronym MOVE, MOVE, and it applies to CEOs, but it literally applies to child rearing, how to relate to your family, to other people. And we didn't realize that till the book was out of our hands.
So tell me a little bit more about MOVE.
Okay. Right. And then you can follow up on what part interests you the most. So I'll do it quickly, then more slowly, and then we can talk about it in business and at home. So the acronym MOVE stands for M is to be mindfully alert. Mindful, we understand, but alert like an athlete.
Correct.
O is to be an options generator, which is in any aspect of your business or your interpersonal or your identity life, you have 4 sets of pathways forward. So, okay, so you can be mindfully alert to what you need to do. Then you can have options forward, but you have to really check your vantage point. And ego is the enemy of having a solid vantage point. And there's ways to check off, is my vantage point accurate or not, and how to look at that. Then the final one, E, is to engage and, affect change inside you or inside your organization. Which one would you like to start with?
No, so let's talk about mindfulness then. You said that a leader needs to be mindfully alert.
Okay, so
talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So being mindfully alert. So you, I'm sure, know mindfulness better than I do, but it's this capacity to be settled down and yourself centered and to really be able to notice without judgment what is going on outside of you, inside of you, and with other people. But then you have to add to that being alert, alert like an athlete. I think of, I was privileged to be at the very last game of the very famous American basketball player, Kobe Bryant, who unfortunately died soon after. And you watch him play, he is, again, centered, but absolutely alert to what's going on around, inside, with the competition, with the arena. And so what we talk about is 3-dimensional leadership. So for everyone watching, what you want to do is have 3 dimensions to your leadership.
Right.
First is what you need to do. And that can be less obvious than you think. Then who you need to be, and then how you need to relate. And that's very much connected to Harvard Business School model of teaching leadership, which is the know, do, and be model. And the be is very important. And there's 3 split-second questions you can ask yourself, like in front of every meeting, before you're about to meet with a team, say, what do you need to do? So you can think, well, we have a key decision to make. That's what I need to do. But wait a minute, is that what you need to do? Or do you need to align the people around the table so that you can do it together? Or you go in and you think your job, what you need to do is to align the people around the table, but no, it's actually to make that decision. So how do you check in with yourself? What do I need to do? What do I really need to do? Is that right? And then be very attuned to information coming at you, show that you're wrong. So that's the first part. The second part is, who do you need to be? And ask yourself, am I being the person I want to be right now?
Right.
And that's another thing I want to challenge you on, which is, say, for the next 48 hours, before any meeting, ask yourself, who do I want to be right now? Who do I want to be right now? And one of the people that Marshall Goldsmith and I were working with she's a CEO of a major platform company. You know her in the news, etc. And we challenged her to do that. And it was during COVID. And one day she was at the very end of her day, you know, it had been like 16 or 20 Zooms. She's about to have her last meeting of the day. She is like many of us. She's cranky, she's overtired, etc. And she's about to start that last meeting of the day where she just wants to stop. And she had trained herself to ask herself before every meeting, who do I want to be right now? So this is a pivotal split-second question that takes you half a second. So when she said to herself, who do I want to be right now? It opened up her brain just a little so a thought could come in that was, wait a minute, the least important meeting of my day is the most important meeting of theirs.
Correct.
And it totally changed. So before I go on to the third dimension, are there any questions you have?
No, I'm very clear on what you're saying.
Okay.
It's fascinating.
So back to three-dimensional leadership and being mindfully alert to what you need to do, who you need to be. The third one is, how do you need to relate? And because we typically work through others, and to create a psychologically safe and peak performance organization, how you relate to others is absolutely crucial. So one aspect of that we talk about is that the golden rule is wrong. And the golden rule is treat others as you would want to be treated. And that's great. It works beautifully if the other person is just like you.
Right.
But instead, we want the platinum rule, which is, as a leader and at home, treat others as they would want to be treated, which may not be what you would want. So imagine you've got like an extrovert boss and an introvert report. And so the introvert report is having some issues, and they're a bit in trouble. So the extrovert boss thinks, wow, yes, surely this person wants encouragement, and it would be so helpful for us to meet and to sort it out together. And the poor introvert's going, oh, please just like give me space to think. Okay, now reverse it. You have the introvert boss, and you've got the extrinsic report, and the extrinsic report is having trouble, and the introvert boss goes, surely they need space. And so this poor person feels abandoned. So it's, how do you really know what other people need and tune into that? Sort of it. So how to be mindful alert to what you really need to do, who you need to be, and how you need to relate.
How wonderful. And I love this very fine differentiation you have created between treat others how you want others to treat you versus treat others how they would expect you to treat them. I think it's a brilliant differentiation, and thank you for sharing this. I hadn't heard this before. But I want to ask you one more question on leadership, and then a few more questions on coaching. One of the things that I've spoken to many leaders in the last few years, and they've said that the most difficult time of their leadership journey was the pandemic, when they had to actually keep their flock together, deliver for their shareholders and stakeholders. So my question to you is, how do you suggest leaders can apply the principles of real-time leadership in remote or virtual environments or hybrid work environments?
It's quite a challenge. And of course, the part you're even not mentioning, which is so excruciating, is, as the leader, are you going to make people come to work?
Correct.
Are you going to allow them to stay home? Like, what are you going to do? But I think the first thing, and you can think of it now in terms of the three dimensions of leadership, was suddenly so much more was being asked of you as a CEO.
Correct.
Suddenly you had to be, you had to adjust your leadership in real time. So one of the things we have is this option generator, which is, as your leader, do you lean in and engage and be directive?
Right.
Do you lean back and go with data and be very rational? Do you lean with and be very caring and think about people? Or are you able to not be triggered and not lean at all? During the pandemic, that was absolutely key, because suddenly, if you were a very flat leader and very kind of egalitarian, well, in times of chaos, there's something called the Cynefin theory. In times of chaos, you may suddenly have to be very directive, even if only short time. So you may have to lean in when your strength is leaning back or leaning with. But the other thing is so many people needed personal support. And suddenly as CEO, a lot of people said, I have to be a comforter in chief. Suddenly the demands on me are so great. And then this constant, unexpected change. I mean, it's easy now almost to forget how scared we were in the beginning. I mean, we were all really scared. I mean, when you'd go shopping or pick up a package of food, you'd wash your hands because you didn't know how you could get it. And so I think the leaders who had to help those people, it was an enormous, but the big one, I actually wrote an article for HBR called Without Compassion, Resilient Leaders Fall Short, because I found that with most of the leaders that I was working with, and these are people who run $350 billion organizations down to maybe 2 billion. They're really tough, resilient people. They were not freaking out themselves. And so what happened is we had to really watch out that a kind of a little bit of contempt didn't come out. Like, what's wrong with you that you're in trouble? Like, I'm not in trouble. And that was a big thing I had to do with some of my leaders, is really confront them about, you cannot expect of others what you have yourself. You have enormous support, enormous privilege. And when you're a leader, you're the recipient of the kind of stress that would crush an ordinary person. You do this. And so then the pandemic isn't necessarily so hard on you personally, because you're trained, you've been inoculated, you've been in practice your whole life, and other people haven't been.
Correct.
So that's some of how I think the pandemic.
Well said. Great response. Thank you. Great response. So a few questions for you now on you as a coach. You told me you set up an organization which I think has 1,000 members. My first question to you, sorry?
Yeah, we've grown. We've grown. We have 1,000. So you're right. We have 1,000 fellows.
Okay.
We have another, dear Lord, 3,000 or 4,000 affiliates, and we have about 30,000 in our larger
amazing
community.
So my first question to you is that, given your own amazing background, how has your background supported your coaching philosophy, your style, and your values?
Do you have 3 hours?
I wish I did. But
I'll tell you one thing, which is a bit personal, but it really has impacted me, is my father was a CEO entrepreneur who was a sociopath. He would, when I was young, so imagine you're a leader. Could you imagine having this conversation with your child? Which was one day we're sitting out by the lake, and he's like, Carol, this honesty stuff, this is blank for the birds. It's a jungle out there. You've got 2 choices. You can lie first or you can lie second. First is better. And then he taught me how to lie. And I go, but Dad, I don't want to lie. He's like, it's the only thing. So the irony is that by watching him and his criminal activities, which he wanted me to continue after he died, and frankly, at great risk to myself, I shut them all down. Like the gold running, everything. I burned everything. And then I ran out of town, literally. And they broke in right after I left. But actually, that has been very, very formative. And also, I understand the pressures that led him there. And so that was a big thing. And my mother, on the other hand, you can experience why they split up, was extremely moral and, sort of believed in the truth, et cetera. So my parenting had a lot to do with it. And then I did have some good leaders and role models along the way. But I think that's what really, and also I was exposed to a lot of dangerous people growing up. I'm very dangerous people. So, I mean, if you're dealing with an angry CEO and it's like, come on, I was stuck with the underboss of the Genovese family who was screaming at me. A CEO is not going to scare me. And the other thing is, at the same time, my father was a sociopath. He was a very likable person. And so I think the key to my coaching is the capacity to care for people who scare other people.
Amazing.
And when you do, then you can speak truth to them and bond with them, because that's the most important thing as a coach, is if you can't overcome ego, and if you can't care, and I mean really care about the leader you're working with. Those are the two secrets of success: knowing a lot of frameworks, everything else, but you have to be mindfully aware who you want to be and how to relate every minute.
Thank you. And thank you for sharing your own story with me on our show. My next question to you, Carol, and I have time for two more questions.
Right.
Is on culture. You know, you live in probably one of the most culturally diverse countries in the world.
Yeah.
We come from different cultural backgrounds in our homes. We work in companies with different cultures. We live in communities which have different cultures. My question is, how does culture impact coaching?
What is it, that article by, I think it's Cynthia Montgomery or someone, that culture eats strategy for breakfast?
Yeah, a lot of people say that Drucker said it and someone said they don't, but the statement, you're right, culture eats strategy for breakfast.
I think as a coach, so first of all, I think if you establish a really lovely relationship with your client. So I have a couple of clients, but one in particular who is a president of a very significant company in India. You would know her. And in the coaching, a lot of times she'll like say, Carol, let me explain. And then she will explain a little bit more about, here, if I do this, I'll be cremated. So I'm like, okay, forget what I said then. And fortunately, since coaching is more pulling than telling, it helps you with the culture a bit. But if you have a good relationship with your client, they can help you when you go off. And then also, I think just experience. But I feel limited that way. I've only lived in America. I mean, I spent about 4 months a year living in other places, but mostly here. I only speak one language, which is quite pitiful compared to most of my clients. But it is like the marinade that you're in. So if you're a chicken and you've been marinated in orange your whole life, you are orange flavored chicken. And on one hand, working with someone who isn't that can give you different ideas, but they have to really appreciate where you've come from and what your challenges are, and just realize you don't know what you don't know.
Well said. Well said. And my last question for you, Carol, and this is for the thousands of people who will listen to our conversation. Based on your own deep understanding of leadership, of coaching, what would you say are 3 lessons you would want a lot of our young viewers and listeners to take away from our conversation?
Okay, the first one is about how to be successful. When you're on a path forward, what you need to do is realize, like, no matter how hard it is, that you're not in control of your destiny, but you are in control of your probabilities. So as you move forward, do the things that you find energizing will increase your probabilities rather than direct success, because you can go for a certain promotion and not get it, and you can consider it, a failure. And on one hand, maybe it is, but also keep doing things that will increase the likelihood that you will be promoted and that you will help people. The second one for working with someone is what your job is. One of your jobs that no one ever tells you, and it's in a way, it's a part of branding, is part of your job is to help your boss feel safe and to reduce their anxiety. So for example, if you've just finished a job and you've done it, but you haven't let your manager know, they're still holding the tension of, is it done or not? So really communicate. And at the same time, again, watch the bad kind of ego. And the other is, I would encourage people to read the whole book, because it is about 1,000 tips on how to be more successful. But I think if we talk about the big thing is find space between stimulus and response, live there as much as you can. When something comes at you, don't immediately throw it back. Don't drop it. Don't hug it, but just give yourself that space to think and choose. And then you can become not just a good leader, but hopefully extraordinary as a leader and as a person.
Fascinating. And on that note, Carolyn, your wonderful lessons, and I love the first one when you said you're not in control of your destiny, but you're definitely in control of your productivity. I think that is such a powerful statement. And next, you also told me was that help your boss feel safe, which means you also said communicate. Thank you so much for speaking to me about your journey. Thank you for talking to me about your book, Real-Time Leadership. And I'm asking all our viewers and listeners to go and check out Dr. Carol Kauffman's book, Real-Time Leadership. Thank you for talking to me about MOVE, M-O-V-E. I love the 4 aspects that you spoke about in MOVE. Thank you for speaking to me about so many different aspects of coaching. Thank you again for speaking to me, and good luck.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website, www.tbcy.in, to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.